Recruiting for both USC and UCLA has gotten extremely confusing. The Dodgers trade for somebody who can't hit, and Nicolas Batum thanks the Clippers for saving his life and then asks them to triple his salary. Good morning, I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is Faithful Angelenos. It's June 21st, 2022. I'm in the home studio for one more day. Next time you hear from me, I'll be in some airport somewhere hating life to the fullest. But whatever. Until then, let's have a little fun. I want to thank the new subscribers who joined in yesterday. If you like the content we've been putting out about LA sports for the last 4 months, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. We put out videos between 9 and 10 a.m. every day to let you know it's there. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. It gets lonely in them thar airports. Now, before we start doing a bit of a rundown on all the things that are going on in LA sports, let's talk scoreboard. There were no games yesterday involving NALA teams. However, today the Dodgers, they are in Cincinnati. They will play at 3:40. Tony Gonsolin, he is 8-0. Tyler Mahle, 2-5, goes for the Reds. Now we'll get to the Dodgers trade in a minute. In addition to that, Washington in the WNBA, they will play the LA Sparks at 7:30. And in the quarterfinals of the US Open Cup, the LA Galaxy will host Sacramento Republic at a game at 7:30. But let's start off by talking a little bit of college football. I don't know which school is confusing me more right now, whether it's USC or UCLA. I mean, if you remember a couple of days ago, we were talking about how USC was just pulling out all the stops, putting on the Ritz, all these great recruits, and then all of a sudden, USC Twitter blows up. Because every time USC Twitter throws up the fight on symbol, that means that they believe they have landed another recruit. They did it 4 times on Sunday. So where are they? We have one. We already know what they did yesterday. They flipped a 3-star offensive lineman, or potentially defensive lineman. He plays both sides of the ball. Amos Talalele, previously committed to Cal. He is the second offensive lineman committed to the 2023 class. He could play on offensive line. The Trojans are not that deep there. Or he could even switch over and play defensive line where they're not deep there either. But we just don't know. But the bigger question is, who are the other 3 commitments? We still don't know. And then I'm going on Twitter this morning, and UCLA Twitter completely blows up. There were like 5 back-to-back tweets about people who have committed to playing for the Bruins. And I'm thinking, hell yeah, the Bruins are playing catch-up. But are they? See, because then I go through the list. At least 3 of them had already committed to playing for the Bruins. I guess today they just enrolled in school officially or whatever. Now, there are still a couple that I hadn't heard about before. I would argue that one of the primary signings is a guy who used to play for USC. Liam Douglas played for Harvard Westlake out in Topanga. He's an offensive lineman. He was once a 4-star prospect out at Harvard Westlake, the 15th ranked offensive tackle overall. And then, like many other recruits during the Clay Helton era, they weren't coached and then they just vanished from view. So basically, he's trying to revive his career by going to his crosstown rival. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. He's 6'5", 263. Hey, man, I mean, it's really easy to sit there and go, oh, you disrespected the Trojans or whatever, but man, the guy's just trying to revive his career while being around his home. So I can't really hate on the guy that much for that. Another new guy that we didn't know about before, wide receiver Ryan Dragoon. He is a grad transfer from an Ivy League school, Penn. Now, in his career, he's played a couple of years. In his career, he caught a total of 1,385 receiving yards. Having said that, you might be saying that's not impressive, but he could get playing time. If you go back to the UCLA spring ball, there were as many as 5 UCLA receivers who did not participate. So they need people in there who can catch a ball or two. And then you sit there and you go, okay, well, who are the other 3? Now, the other 3 potentially fill needs. We just already knew that they had signed on. There's an offensive lineman from Scottsdale, Arizona. He transferred from Oregon, Jalen Jeffers. He's going to have as many as 4 years of eligibility left, so he could mature into something for the Bruins. Raekwon O'Neal, grad transfer from Rutgers. He was a multi-year starter at tackle. Now, there was talk at Rutgers that they were going to move him into guard, but UCLA is thin at tackle. Chance to play. He is currently probably about, I would say, 3rd on the depth chart. And then at defensive lineman, Jacob Sykes out of Kansas City, a grad transfer from Harvard. So again, it's confusing. What are we looking at here? Are we looking at a big recruiting day that fills a lot of needs for UCLA? Or not? Because we already knew they were there. Or are we talking about with USC, are we talking about maybe a premature celebration for players who haven't exactly committed to the Trojans yet? It's very confusing. Here's something else that confuses me. The Dodgers, they were at one point in time an offensive juggernaut. They were leading Major League Baseball with 5.5 runs a game. This month alone, it's dropped to 3.5. That is a massive fall. And then, of course, Mookie Betts gets hurt. And so the Dodgers front office says, well, maybe we should do something. So they acquired Trace Thompson from Detroit. Trace Thompson is a hitter for this day and age in the American history. In other words, he sucks. He can't hit. I mean, years ago, he was a Dodger, right? Last time we saw him in LA, I think it was 2017, he hit 122. Out of his 200 or so games in the majors, more than 100 were with LA. In other words, he is a career minor leaguer. He got a very brief cup of coffee. And when I mean by cup, it may as well be a thimbleful of coffee with the Padres this year. He hit .071. They cut him. Detroit picks him up. He's allegedly killing it in AAA. But Detroit is terrible. If he was killing it in AAA, you would sit there and think, well, maybe that means that the Tigers would give him a shot at the big leagues. Detroit was like, nah, we're not doing that. And yet the Dodgers are like, hey, you want a starting gig for a few weeks? Does that make any sense? Does that make any sense? Nicolas Batum has declined his option. He played for the Clippers. He's now a free agent. He says he wants to stay with the Clippers. I mean, if he had picked up the option, it would have been $3.3 million. But LA can re-sign him. He is apparently one of these bird rights players. And to be frank with you, I can't explain bird rights. But if LA does re-sign him, they can go as high as $10.9 million. Which honestly is kind of, I get it, I do. But he loves Coach Tyronn Lue, says he, quote, saved my life. Thanks for saving my life, Coach. And while you're at it, triple my salary. Life versus money. Life versus money. The Galaxy tonight are playing Sacramento Republic. I mentioned that earlier. The Galaxy are in an interesting place right now, to me. You got Dejan Joveljic. He's renewing his request for more playing time. And I can't really say that I blame him. The ESPN guys were like, well, if you start him, who do you have coming off the bench? I can sort of kind of appreciate that argument. But he and Chicharito have played a role in 2/3 of LA's goals for the entire year. Played a role. They've combined to score 10 times. They've added a couple of assists. And if you're like me, you are just begging for somebody to make a difference on this team. two of the designated players, we already know that Douglas Costa only has 2 goals. We already know Kevin Cabral, where is he? He hasn't done the damn thing. So I would imagine that Joveljic is going to get a lot of playing time tonight in the U.S. Open Cup. You can't just sit there and play Chicharito over and over and over, even in a U.S. Open Cup game. But having said that, I would urge the Galaxy not to go to sleep on Republic. Here's why. 2 big reasons. 1, they're run by a former Galaxy legend, Todd Dunavant. Also, if you may recall, Sacramento was supposed to play in MLS this year. They were granted an expansion franchise, but a billionaire who was backing the whole thing pulled out about a year and a half ago, and now Sacramento is stuck in the USL while MLS has developed a bromance with Las Vegas. So Sacramento knows exactly what this game means. Now, they are one of 2 non-MLS teams that are still left in the tournament. The other one is Union Omaha over in Nebraska. I say that because I work as a traveling employee in Omaha, and every time I remind myself of Omaha, I want to cry. The Kings. There are rumors going about a right winger from Chicago, Alex DeBrincat. And the Kings are apparently interested in trading for the guy. And you can understand why. He scored 41 goals last year. He's only 24 years old, 24. Plays for the Blackhawks. Now, Chicago would want a lot for a 24-year-old 40-goal scorer. And I can't say that I blame them. Earlier during the regular season, they made a trade. They got a boatload for a young player from Tampa Bay. So they're looking for the same thing. According to NHL analyst Pierre LeBrun, Chicago would want a young player, a couple of high picks, and a couple of top prospects. In essence, it would almost make it a 5-for-1 deal. Now, the Kings do have young prospects. The Kings do have young players. But they really love their draft picks. So would you give up that much for one guy who, by the way, is probably going to be a free agent next year and is going to want a pay raise? The Lakers have released their summer Las Vegas schedule, the Summer League. That's a league, if you've never heard of it, it's for first and second year players only. They won it a year. They won it when, back in the day when they were trying to rebuild through the draft, and they had your Brandon Ingrams, your D'Angelo Russells, and they won it a couple of years in a row, and everybody was talking about, oh my God, the Lakers are going to be a team of the future. And then they flushed it all down to go chase a title, which actually, in my opinion, is the right call, because you don't know anything about D'Angelo Russell. You don't know anything about Brandon Ingram. They're just basically out of the first round of the playoffs. So no, they did the right thing. But whoever the Lakers are going to take in free agency as a first or second year player, you can come to Vegas. You can go see him play from July 8th to July 15th. And well, this is pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We are trying to build something here for LA sports. Thanks again for watching. I'm James. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. See you tomorrow.